2 weeks ago, I set out to lose 10 pounds in 10 days. Wait, no, that's wrong. Please don't try to lose 10 pounds in 10 days because a plan like that will never work, I promise. Let's start again. 2 weeks ago, I set out to lose 10 pounds in 10 weeks with the same simple fat loss diet that helped me lose 50 pounds after 40. But just because it helped with slow and steady fat loss before, will this plan still work? Especially since this time I've got a deadline. If you're a woman over 40 who's struggling to lose fat, keep watching because I'm going to show you everything I did to chip away at my goal in week 2. I can't tell you exactly how much I lost yet because that would be like telling you that Jack died because Rose refused to share that freaking floating door. I mean, hopefully I didn't spoil that too, because Titanic was released like 30 years ago. Well, now that I've clearly spilled the beans on my age, as a 45-year-old mom who lost 50 pounds and managed to stay at a healthy weight for several years now, I'm sharing the real, unfiltered look at what it takes to lose weight after 40. So in today's video, I'll show you exactly how I exercised this week, how I hit my goal of 150 grams of protein a day while staying close to 2,000 calories, and of course, the actual results I got from week 2. Because this week definitely showed me that even if you're not even close to perfect, like me this week, you can still make progress as long as you're intentional and you know what to tweak and adjust along the way. First, let's talk about the elephant in the room, walking. Because during week 1, I committed to all of the walking, leaving my family to reignite my nickname when I was set out to lose my first 50 pounds, the crazy neighborhood walking lady. That was before I had a treadmill, and that's how one of my neighbors recognized me on Halloween. I wish I was joking. I mean, she didn't outright call me crazy, just the neighborhood walking lady, but attempting to rack up 20,000 steps a day started to make me feel at least a little bit crazy. Not because walking is hard, but because it felt like that's all I was doing all day, every day. So this week, I switched it up and I went back to focusing just on morning walks. Now, even though I still hit 16 to 18,000 steps some days without even really trying, it didn't feel forced and it didn't burn me out. Because here's the truth about a sustainable weight loss plan. If something feels forced, it will never last. Speaking of forcing things, let's talk about my calories. My original goal was to average 1,800 calories a day because that's what I calculated to lose a pound a week, which I didn't quite stick to since this week I averaged 2,052 calories a day. And I wanted to bring this up since this is where a lot of women struggle. Most women look at the days they work hard to stay under their calories, like here and here, so they're only thinking of their progress in terms of the good days that are on point. But far too many of us conveniently forget about those days when we eat out or mindlessly go over our calories for the day, which is the reason I add everything into a tidy spreadsheet so I'm not lying to myself about my actual totals for the week. Which, looking at these totals, once again, I spent way too many meals eating out for someone who wants to lose weight for the 3rd week in a row. And even though I estimated to eat 2,300 calories on Sunday, 2,000 on Friday, and another 2,300 on Saturday, I know it was probably more than that since restaurant meals are packed with hidden calories. But I am finally getting better at reining it in since most Fridays used to be over 2,400 calories. But I also understand if I want to actually get out of this fat loss phase sometime this decade, I have to face the reality that eating out is by far the biggest roadblock standing in my way. And it could be a huge roadblock standing in your way if you eat out as much as me. Before we get into my week 2 results, let me show you exactly how I hit 150 grams of protein while sticking close to my calorie budget, even when life gets busy and fast food is the only answer. Let's talk about Friday, which for us is usually Panda Express, thanks to my 9-year-old's long-standing obsession with orange chicken. Even though I'm no longer the crazy neighborhood walking lady, I still start my day with activity right after rolling out of bed. And since I was struggling to make it through a full workout while also moving more, plus the added stress of being in a calorie deficit, I decided to cut my strength training routine back to 15 to 20 minutes a day instead of 2 or 3 longer 90-minute full body sessions. The good thing about this kind of routine is you can still make some pretty good progress in only a few minutes a day, as long as you're focused on the right movement during those few minutes. But before I lift, I fuel up since I don't want to spend my workout daydreaming about food instead of making progress under the bar. To fuel up, I go with my usual protein shake, except this time I add a pre-workout powder to my original shake that's made up of coconut milk, water, frozen strawberries, a scoop of protein powder, and 5 grams of creatine, which puts me at 171 calories with 25 grams of protein to start the day. And this shake works for me since it gives me energy, but doesn't make me feel too full and bloated right before lifting. Before I show you my workout, I want you to understand that I did not start here, and it took me years to get to this point. So if you try a box squat, but you can't even lift the bar, don't feel like that's where you need to start. Even though these compound moves are what will really shape your body, take your time to work up with weights that you feel comfortable with. Yes, you want to lift heavy, but lifting with good form and not hurting yourself is your #1 priority. My first compound move for my 20-minute workout is a box squat. Even though all of the cool kids are squatting ass to grass, that's not something that my 45-year-old self can handle, especially since I'm working with a hypermobile ankle and still technically recovering from surgery, which is where the box squat comes in. And even though I do load the bar, first I do a warm-up set with just the bar so my body can remember proper form once I start my lift, which almost led to me breaking my neck this morning since I tried adjusting the box for a better shot, but I forgot I was still holding the 45-pound bar. So I almost face planted with an Olympic bar on my back. Let's just say that wouldn't have gone too well if all of the motions followed through as were intended. Thankfully, all of this strength training helps with agility, so once again, working out saved the day. And I will never try that move again. But once I'm ready to lift, I load the bar with 30 pounds on each side. Once you factor in the weight of the bar, I'm box squatting 105 pounds for 10 reps per set. Well, at least that's what I did last week. And since my goal is to always progress, this week I'm aiming to squeeze out 1 more rep per set. So I push through 11 reps instead. I do these slow and controlled, which I really have no other choice because that bar is heavy. And I focus on hinging at my hips, sitting back into a squat, and not taking more than a second or two to rest on the box before pushing right back up. In between sets, I rest for 2 to 3 minutes. If you're not tired enough to rest for those 2 or 3 minutes, then you're not pushing yourself hard enough during your sets. And you gotta push hard if you wanna build muscle. When I rest, I use a technique called palmar cooling, where I use an ice pack covered in a paper towel to cool my palms in between sets. This helps cool your body more quickly, which helps get you ready to push hard during your next set. I don't really see anyone else taking advantage of this hack, which makes me look at least a little crazy, but I swear it helps. Plus, sometimes I'm recording myself while working out, and the pre-workout makes me dance in between sets, so what's a little extra crazy? Add it to the mix. Once I make it through 3 sets of 11 reps with 2 to 3 minutes of rest time in between each set, I'm continuing to build my legs with barbell deadlifts. Once again, I do a warm-up set with just the bar. That way, I can remind my body of proper form, keeping my back straight and hinging at my hips. Once I'm ready to do my first set, I load 30 pounds on each side of the bar. Since I also did 105 pounds last week, this week I aim to do 11 reps per set, just so I advance in some way. Then I do a little resting, maybe a little dancing since the pre-workout powder is definitely kicking in. Once I make it through 3 full sets, I clean up and I'm done. Which typically this workout takes about 24 minutes once I include all of the rest and setup times, but the actual workout itself is really under 10 minutes of actual work. And if I put in 10 minutes of hard work every day, that's all I really need to maintain, but hopefully gain muscle. Even though my watch shows I only burned 172 calories for the workout, we're not really concerned about how many calories we burn now, because what really speeds your fat loss plan is the muscle you build, which speeds up your metabolism, even when you're just sitting around doing nothing. But since I do want a bit of a calorie burn boost, and walking has been amazing at suppressing my appetite, I hop on an inclined treadmill for a moderate walk. I start at 3 miles per hour with an incline of 3 for the first few minutes to warm up. Once I feel warm, I push that up somewhere around to an incline of 5 to 6 with a speed of 3.2. Today, I only made it 37 minutes, which would be perfectly fine to stop there. But since I want to keep my activity higher than normal so I lose fat, I decide to also walk at home on my desk treadmill for another hour while writing out this video. Which, yes, these videos take several hours to put together. So if you want to throw me a like or a comment every now and then, I am not mad at it. After that, my hunger kicks in. So I whip up half a grilled turkey and cheese sandwich with a side of berries. If this looks familiar from last week, that's because I ate it then too, which is one of my best tricks for fat loss. Find meals that keep calories low and protein high, and then eat them on repeat until you're ready to switch things up. I end the meal with a coffee shake and a pack of green vitamins. These taste pretty good if you haven't tried them, but they are pretty pricey. But I know I don't eat enough vegetables, so I'm hoping this is at least a decent compromise. I mean, who wouldn't rather have gummies over broccoli? It's an obvious choice. I log everything in a chronometer, so after this second breakfast, I'm at 516 calories with 61 grams of protein for the morning. Then I work or take care of my kids, but one thing I'm not doing is walking. I am not about that life, at least not like I was for 12 days last month. I'm hungry again around 1:15, so I make half a spaghetti sandwich using leftover spaghetti sauce, which tastes amazing. Last night I made this sauce with 2 pounds of ground beef, a jar of sauce, onions, green peppers, and spices. For the sandwich, I toast a slice of Dave's thin sliced bread, sprayed lightly with cooking spray, and sprinkle with garlic powder. Then I layer on 5 ounces of sauce and top with half an ounce of cheese, let it warm up, and dig in. There's no side needed since this sandwich alone is super filling at 378 calories with 37 grams of protein. By 3:30, my hunger kicks in for my active morning. Since I'm eating out tonight, I want a snack that's high in protein but low in calories because most restaurant meals are the opposite. Since I'm busy editing or pretending like I'm some sort of graphic designer, I grab another protein shake. It fills me up for a few hours and bumps my protein intake, which is essential for fat loss. I keep it similar to my morning shake, just without the pre-workout powder. For dinner, I take my favorite dinner date to Panda Express. A few weeks ago, my order might have been honey sesame chicken, an order of string bean chicken, and half a serving of fried rice. But since I really want this plan to work, I need to rein it in. So tonight, I order 2 orders of string bean chicken, 1 order of kung pao chicken, and half the rice. And instead of my favorite rice cake s'mores dessert, I just have 1 rice cake, still getting my sweet fix without all of the extra calories from the marshmallows and chocolate chips. Dinner ends up at 52 grams of protein, which is pretty good for eating out, but it takes me 985 calories to get that much protein, which I planned for, so I don't have any regrets. Well, except for tomorrow's weight spike. Because even when you make better choices, it is still inevitable that all of that sodium will bump your weight the next day. For me, it was a 0.8 pound spike overnight, which is the beauty of weighing in daily. You learn what to expect so you're not crushed when you see a gain after a restaurant meal, even though you thought you made a good choice. Because I really only care about the weekly trend, not one random spike on the scale. Speaking of, let's talk results for week 2. Which were way better than I expected, even after eating out 4 times this week and averaging 2,052 calories a day. But honestly, if I keep getting results like this, I am perfectly fine with eating more. After decades of starving myself for quick weight loss, that's a path that I won't take. My tracker estimated that I'd lose between 0.54 pounds to 1.2 pounds for the week, based on my estimated and actual activity from my Apple Watch. Once again, I did way better than I expected, losing 1.44 pounds for the week. And let me stress, that's a great pace for me, which is where I need to set my expectations based on me and my body, not how quickly some 25-year-old fitness influencer loses weight. Even though it is a realistic pace at about 1% of my body weight for the week, my hormones haven't let me see those kind of drops in years, especially 2 weeks in a row. Since I'm still eating out too much, which usually packs on a few pounds of water weight for a week or more, I have to give credit to moving more. Even though I'm not hitting 20,000 steps like before, I'm still way above the 10K range I used to average, with this week coming in close to 16,000 steps a day. Plus, making better choices when eating out is definitely helping. Another big factor in my progress is sticking to my protein goal of 150 grams per day, which this week I averaged 154. Only doing 2 compound lifts a day probably helps my body recovery better, which means less stress and more results. So in the famous words of Buzz Lightyear, onwards and upwards to next week. I mean, I don't think he ever actually said it like that, but it's been a while since I've watched that movie. Now that I'm officially a full 2.64 pounds closer to my 10-pound goal, I'll be back next week with another update. In the meantime, check out last week's video next. I break down how I started this plan to lose 10 pounds in 10 weeks, even after 40.